My dear ladies and gentlemen, defeated souls of the present age and hidden.
私に答えを聞かせてくれ。戦うか
Will you rise to battle? There we go. Hi everyone, it's Holly Marie King, and I had to do that first before I did my introduction because the game, as soon as you load, it just starts going. So, thought we could do that first before I did the introduction. We are playing... Oh my goodness. I can't even remember the name of it. I read it right before I started the video and I forgot what it was called. But it's a foreign game. I wouldn't even be able to pronounce it properly. I'll have it in the name of the video though. So, I always have this difficulty trying to figure out what game I want to play, so I decided to put a bunch of games into my random name generator that I found on accident, and I love it very much, that I use for the 100 Baby Challenge. So basically, I put a bunch of games in rotation, so we never know what I'm going to play each episode. So, this is the one that got picked by my random generator, so I'm going to give it a shot. If I personally like the game, I'll put it back into the generator to play again. If I, for some reason, get maybe 5 likes or 30 views on this video, then I will also put it in the random generator, but unless that happens, I won't play it again. So anyway, let's see how we like this game. So we're on May 1st, 1945, Berlin, Germany. Okay. Oh, there it is, 1227. The closing act of the Second World War has the manifestation of total war such as had never been seen before. No, the term carnage would have been more appropriate. Outmanned in every way, Berlin stood in complete isolation, slipping towards this crevice of annihilation. The nearly 500,000 troops marching under the banner of the Red Army had already surrounded the capital, making escape virtually impossible. Guns roared, mingling with the screams of the dying in an incessant cacophony of terror as the city was razed and its people massacred. Bloodshed, carnage, all in order to eradicate the enemies of this world. Be they young or old, man or woman, justice, revenge, love, peace, oppression, liberty, equality. The slogan one chose to attach to the horror made little difference. The chaos engulfing the bloody streets demonstrated quite readily the atrocities that would manifest when men was presented with a convenient higher cause to justify it in there. Yes, for example, in this corner of the city, a blinding light flashed, followed by a roaring explosion. This latest bombardment sent even more soldiers, at least 3, whose silhouettes were still recognizably human, to their deaths, spreading their remains across the pavement. Bastards! Then on a loud curse, a man leapt out of the trenches with Panzer Faust in hand. Protected by the covering fire of his allies, Schmeisers, he dashed over into effective firing range. He rose to his knees, took aim, and pulled the trigger, firing a heat warhead. The projectiles shot forward, smashing right into the flank of the tank. Its armor dissolved in accordance with the Newman effect, and the tank imploded in a torrent of liquefied metal in 1,000-degree flames. The man tossed aside his Panzerfaust, and, backed by comrades from behind, started cleaning up his remaining foes with his Mauser. Such was war. It allowed no time for idle thoughts, only slaughter, murder, and bloodshed. No man could keep his sanity in the cell, and so the perpetrators of this chaos howled and raged, never looking back, reveling in boundless insanity to keep their blood afire. Within this flaming wasteland of gunplay, soldiers single-mindedly continued their murderous dance as if it was some ungodly ritual. Of course, in reality, it was all but child's play. Soldiers against soldiers, rifles against pistols. No matter how fiercely they fought on this battlefield, the outcome of this war was already set in stone. The Third Reich had crumbled, the ambitions of its visionary leader lost in flames of war. What remained on that tattered battlefield was the shaken remnants of the defeat, and the mob of the victors, walking like vultures to the smell of decaying flesh, certain death, inescapable defeat. Any attempt to retaliate was merely a self-serving act of revenge with no hope of salvation. The situation had surpassed anything that might elicit notions of despair, transforming into no more than an absurd comedy of sorts. And yet, kill them all! His heart beat still. His hand gripped steel. He would not stop so long as there were enemies to kill. For it was his sworn duty, if there existed even one thing, anything at all, to justify this hellfire, be it sheer insanity, then that by itself would have been a crime. Honor and glory debased and disgraced with less than pig shit. And yet human life remained the cheapest currency. That was reality. Oh, I got excited. Is this us left of us? After wiping out all leftover foes and grouping with his comrades, it dawned upon the man that there were only 3 of them left standing, himself included. The company tasked with protecting this flock had been completely annihilated. The situation was anything but promising. And still more enemies were on their way. What are our Panzerfaust? You just used the last one, Master Sergeant. This is the end of us. The war is lost. The young man flashed a bitter smile as he handed over his Schmeiser to the other. The older man glared at him, but offered no more in the way of reproach. The war is lost, indeed. That was the bitter truth of it. Berlin had fallen, the company massacred, and the remaining 3 soon to join them. Well, none of it matters at this point. Would be nice if we could at least go out with a bang, though. It's not like we've anywhere to flee. Your name, soldier? Joachim Browner. What about you, sir? Walter Garrett. I suppose we'd rather know the names of the men we'll be dying with you there. The Master Sergeant, Walter Garrett, directed his gaze at the final survivor of the company, a young boy who had thus far remained silent. Your name? The boy's eyes darting as he failed to hide his shock, was even younger than Joachim, barely in his teens. If Walter had a son, he might have been around the same age. Marco Schmitzer. I see. Walter was about to ask what a mere child was doing there, but ultimately swallowed his words. It was a foolish question. The enemy would show no mercy to them, not even to children. The reason for it was very clear. They were the bitter enemies of the Red Army, the despised members of the Staffel. Even if they were to surrender, the Soviets were doubtlessly uninterested in taking them as prisoners. As such, fighting until their last breath was the only option left to them. Walter was certain that Joachim was ready to give his life for the fatherland. The boy, on the other hand, what will become of Berlin? No, of Germany after the war is over. And what of our friends and families? You're asking the wrong man. It's always the same shit. The victors will paint us as inhumane monsters and mete out whatever justice they deem appropriate. Give me a break. Can you move if you're moving there? Joachim shed his disaffected act, the bitter tone in his voice making his true position on the situation clear. My mother and sister lived in Dresden, but they got caught in the bombing. Never so much as found a piece of them, and they called us monsters. Ridiculous. We were merely fighting to protect our fatherland, and yet those bastards, who the hell did they think they were? He would never surrender. Yet even if he gave his life in the battle to come, the outcome of the war had already been decided. Nothing could change that, least of all himself. With this defeat, their fatherland and their descendants would. A single soldier was powerless to alter the great current of the war. Joachim tried to express his dissatisfaction with that reality as best he could, while Marco silently listened. So, if I have nothing else left, at least... Oh, God! Ah! Several rifle shots echoed from their left wristband. Walter and Marco just barely managed to duck into cover, but Joachim was not so fortunate. His head was shot clean off by the first wave, followed by an entire volley of bullets being unloaded into his chest. God damn it. He can still speak? Pelted by machine gun fire, Joachim's body contorted in a queer manner, almost reminiscent of some form of dance, before finally hitting the ground. An anticlimactic finale indeed for the youth who had only moments prior expressed his desire to fight to the bitter end. But such was the reality of the situation, the reality of war. There were no heroes here, no messiahs or miracles to save them, only men dying like insects, and should one allow his soul to be overcome by wrath or despair, when confronted with this knowledge, it would serve only to invite the jaws of death to consume him next. The chaos of war would not tolerate idle thoughts. Knowledge of one's duty was all that was necessary. Schmidt! Answer me! Schmidt! As Walter rolled into the safety of a ruined building, he shouted the name of his lone surviving comrade with all the strength he could muster, but instead of words, the sole reply he received was yet another flash, followed by a fire explosion. The upper half of the young boy's body was flung at Walter's feet. The cramped alleyway was heavy with the stench of blood and scorched entrails. Walter powerlessly dropped to his knees into the vast sea of blood. Ah, Sergeant Major, forgive me for not being of more use. Marco smiled, even as the last embers of his life faded away. It was unbelievable someone could still form words in a state such as this. Walter took the boy's hand. I don't want to die. If I die here, then what have we been fighting for all this time? Sir, please tell me, are we monsters? Berlin and Germany? You mustn't talk. As the gunfire continued, a brand new tank rolled onto the battlefield. Marco Schmidt was beyond help. Not even God could save him now. And so Walter's rightful place now was on the battlefield, his hand clutching a gun and not the hand of a dying soldier. His ear lent not to the naive parting remarks of a boy, but straining to hear the breathing of his enemy. He knew that better than anyone, and yet, have we committed sins? Does that make this our punishment? I know there is no pride in war and murder, but we, Johann Walter and so many other German soldiers just like him, had done nothing more than take up arms and protect our fatherland and loved ones. Was that truly a sin? Surrounded by the flames of the dying capsule, the young boy spoke in mere disjointed fragments, voicing a question Walter himself would have loved to pose to the heavens above. Most likely. Yet after mere seconds of doubt, Walter answered curtly. Waging war is no sin. Losing a war is. Such was the way of the world, a cruel, bitter truth. Walter found within himself a growing resentment for the Lord. I see. I'd like to win our next one, then. Marco Schmidt then quietly passed away in Walter's arms, the man gazing up at the heavens. The young soldier's smile in death, albeit tainted with blood and mud, still had traces of boyhood. Worry not, Schmidt, for honor. A bitter smile mirroring Marco's crept onto Walter's face. We will claim the next one, if not, then the next one, or the one after that, even if we are doomed to repeat this outcome a million times before knowing victory. His words might have seemed the ramblings of a lunatic beset by the armies of death. They were more than that. Walter cocked his Schmeiser, confirmed it was loaded, then charged out of the ruined building into the open. Sieg Heil! He unconsciously let out a battle cry, loud enough that it threatened to rend his throat. Would he end up gunned down like Johann, or share the same fate as Marco? It hardly mattered anymore. Either way, he nearly died a miserable death befitting his miserable war. His mind was occupied by such disparate thoughts, in no way could he have predicted what was to come next. Peter Noster, oh, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Grant them eternal rest, O Lord, and may everlasting light shine upon them. It was the soldier's intuition that drove Walter to reflexively take shelter. Okay. His vision was drowned out by a blinding white light and an explosion so fierce it dwarfed all previous bombardments, an explosion that seemed to rip apart the very heavens. Walter realized that this explosion was far beyond the level of any weapon that could have possibly been employed in urban warfare. What in the world had happened? The city had been literally staked his life to protect, had been reduced to a charred wasteland. Although it took quite a while for Walter to regain his sight and hearing, there was still not enough time for him to make sense of the situation. Part of him wondered if it was all a sick joke. Only one thing was clear. Both his allies' corpses and the encroaching enemy troops had been annihilated. No bombing ray could have inflicted such immense damage, and although Walter had managed to survive the attack itself, his resulting wounds were deep. Ugh. Pieces of steel and concrete blasted in his direction by the explosion and pierced his back and flank. The hand that once held his Schmeiser was blown off from the elbow. It wasn't even worth the effort to attempt to discern the number of more minor injuries. His incessant bloody vomit told him that he had also suffered severe internal damage. He would not make it. Fuck. Walter swore blindly, no longer certain of the target of his indignation. Just then, the voice from before rang out again. Hear my prayer, O Lord. To you all flesh shall come. Return unto thy rest, O my soul, for the Lord hath dealt bountifully with thee. As a requiem offered up to fallen soldiers, one sung in a beautiful voice. Not even a prestigious church choir could produce a melody quite this dignified. Yet at the same time the scorn seeping into the voice was all too evident. Only upon the eve of the apocalypse itself could such a voice be conceived as in angels. It sung of the dead with scorn, ridicule, and mockery, deriving the most pleasure in trampling upon every last remnant of the dignity they possessed, the voice of a destroyer, intoxicated by mayhem. This was the product of a black mind possessed solely by an inhuman malice. Grant them eternal rest, O Lord, and may everlasting light shine upon them. And so, stepping onto the vast expanse of debris, the destroyer appeared, with that demonic requiem at his lips. Whoa. It was a young boy lacking in years, even in comparison to Marco, with a face so delicate that a careless glance could easily mistake his features for those of a girl's. That was pretty scary looking. A single look at the boy was enough to give Walter chills. His teeth began to chatter. Although he had lost a considerable amount of blood, his vision had grown hazy. The reason behind the freezing chill at his back lay elsewhere. The sheer enmity and bane radiating from the boy's visage indeed contributed to that, but to Walter the most dreadful thing was the fact that he knew that face. There lived no man who fought on the Eastern Front and knew not of this boy. A beast possessed by an insatiable hunger, his aberrant mind ruled by inhuman madness, his single eye gleamed silver, locks swaying. He gripped a pair of guns, each engraved with a wolf's angel, the rune of the wolf. There was no doubt it was a face Walter could never forget, the face of a boy who had supposedly died 3 years ago. Major Schreiber, Eastern Front Assault Corps, Special Unit Leader, SS Major Wolfgang Schreiber, an unchained beast that fluttered both friend and foe, the ashen demon that had supposedly met his end during a purge. How could he be standing here? Big innocent Major Walter Thurlitz. I sure caused trouble for you and the rest of the arts grouping, didn't I? You doing well? Hardly the words one would offer a dying comrade, especially one whose death was most likely caused by Schreiber himself. The boy flashing an innocently devilish smile in front of Walter was no doubt the very same person he remembered. Yet his armband bore not the swastika, but a different symbol altogether, almost as if he were no comrade at all. Why are you here? Do I need a reason? I'm here because I'm a soldier, much like yourself. War is our profession, murder our currency. The boy playfully surveyed the landscape. It was proof enough of his statement. And what followed was nothing short of unnatural, something akin to a opaque vapor erupted in their vicinity, like a fog or a haze. At the same time, Walter's senses were assaulted by dreadful moaning. There were the cursed cries of the fallen, fated to suffer and lament until the very end of time. This endless chorus of lamentation caused even the seething air of the battlefield to cool. These were the spirits of the dead. Walter felt like he could almost make out the faces of Marco and Johann among the swirling mass, as well as the destination toward which they were spiraling. Straight into Schreiber's Totenkopf eye patch. He was devouring the very souls of those he had slain. Confronted with such a repulsive, unworldly spectacle, Walter could not determine whether he should give himself over to rage or simply weep. He longed for the response of insanity. Well then, my dear Master Sergeant, time for me to take off. How about you? Schreiber, seemingly done with his meal, wearily turned his neck to Walter. He was breathing his last, not in any condition to spill blood like a soldier should. Do you not hunger for more? Of course, killing even 100 or 1,000 of the Reds won't change anything at this point. But that doesn't mean you need to sit there and watch things crumble. Look around you. Look at your Berlin. Is this the end of our glorious empire, foretold to stand strong for 1,000 years? Who would be seriously content with this? Content? No one, right? Walter threw a piercing glance at the smiling boy. Indeed, no one in their right mind would be content with such an outcome. He'd had friends to call his own, a family to go home to, a woman to love. He cherished this country. All that became tainted due to Germany's defeat, dishonor that no centuries could wash clean. That was unforgivable, right? Those repugnant lowlives tore down our walls, trampled upon our great capital, killed our children, raped our women, hanged our elders. My dear Master Sergeant Walter Thurlitz, sworn and loyal blade of the German army, I ask of you, what do you desire? The amount of blood leaking from Walter's mouth, forth from Walter's mouth, made speech difficult, but his feelings were set. Johann, who vowed to fight till the bitter end, Marco, who wished for victory. Their feelings as well as his own. The boy standing before him was unmistakably from the fold of the devil, but such things mattered little at that point. What he wanted was, I want to emerge victorious, victory, honor, and glory for the fatherland, to bring peace for our friends and family that had fallen, to bring prosperity for generations yet unborn, and above all else for his very own soul. Sieg Heil! That is correct, Master Sergeant. What a wonderful display of will and bravery. You deserve the honor of becoming his flesh and blood. This war will never end. We will not allow it. We will repeat it again and again and again and again. Grant us victory. Let us journey together to our endless battlefield till victory is in our hands. We shall claim victory in the next war, if not in the one after that. Hundreds and thousands and millions of battles repeating over and over again until this outcome can finally be toppled. Schreiber thrust his Mauser in Walter's direction. As the last light of this man's soul began to fade, grant them eternal rest, O Lord, and may everlasting light shine upon them. His requiem was one of scorn for the fallen pregnant with malicious intent, and yet Walter thought it beautiful, like the song of an angel. It was then that he finally realized this was the apocalypse, and that he would soon join the ranks of those marching to destroy the world. He would become a strand of the beast's mane, one of many in his something. Sorry. The boy gazed to the heavens and offered up a splitting cackle, his silver hair dancing. The soul of Walter Gerlitz, who was sucked into the body's blood-crazed eye and vanished. At the same time, in another place, a new nightmare was unfolding. Okay, well then I'm going to end this here, because my god. I mean, it's interesting. Don't get me wrong, it's interesting, but it is a lot of reading. So yeah, I guess if you liked it, put a like on the video so I know if you guys want to see more of this one or not. I might continue just to see what happens next. But yeah, anyway, like I said, I'm just going to leave this for now. Hopefully I will see you guys next time. Bye!